Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having an absolutely splendid day. Right now, we are going over everything you need to know to get started making your own fully personalized layouts, overlays for your gameplay videos and your live streams on Twitch, YouTube, etc., and it's all free. This video is split into two parts, the first being all the image creation stuff, like making all the graphical stuff, and it's linked up in the card over there or down in the description below. The second part is what we're going over today and will involve taking all those images and compiling them within a program called OBS or Open Broadcaster Studio with all the other live elements such as your webcam, self-updating text fields, the gameplay, etc. All right, here we go. So obviously the first thing you're going to need if you're going to work with OBS Studio is OBS Studio itself. This is known as Open Broadcaster Software Studio. Yes, it's a terrible name. It's located at obsproject.com. Of course, that'll be linked in the description below. Go ahead and download it for your appropriate platform. We're going to do Windows, so I'm going to download it for Windows. I already have it installed, and here it is booted up right like this. What this program allows you to do is to compile a bunch of different sources into a scene to stream or record. What these sources are include the images that we created in part one, your webcam, your audio, your gameplay, whatever you want to record. If you just want to record your screen like I'm doing right here to show you guys this tutorial, I'm also using OBS to record this. We are not going to be going into intricate details during this tutorial on how to use OBS per se. We're more going on how to get everything into OBS for the layout portion. There are tons of tutorials on the internet about how to set up your different sources or troubleshooting or getting around some of the limitations of OBS, integrating it with Twitch or YouTube, etc., etc. But for now, we're just going to be going over the layout stuff. So when you boot up OBS, you're going to see something like this. Yours might be white or light theme. I set mine to dark theme. You can do that by going into settings. And you're going to see something like this where it says you don't have any sources, but you're also going to see it over here, I believe, for scenes. So the first step you're going to want to do is go down here to this plus button and hit New Scene. We're going to title this 1920 by 1080 Overlay. Once you hit OK, it'll boot up a brand new scene. Ignore that. That's something that I have set for myself for my own scene transition. Scene transitions are one of those more advanced features that we may get into in another tutorial. So we're here, but once we have a scene, we now need to add some sources. The first sources we're going to add are the layout image itself. So we're going to go here, down to the plus button, image. We are going to create a new image that's 1920 by 1080. And we're going to call this one overlay, but we're going to put a space. That's how I denote. You can't have the same name, so I can't have 1920 by 1080 underscore overlay over here and in the sources as well. So I use spaces in my sources and underscores in my scenes. You can do whatever you want. That's just how I do it. Create new. Yep, we are good. Now go browse to your computer. We're going to go over here and find our 1920 by 1080p file. Open it up, and it's going to be, and then hit OK. And it's going to be huge. It's going to be way bigger than we want it to be because we doubled the size. You just go up here in the corner and keep dragging and moving it. If you move it off the screen, it'll show it in this kind of striped pattern. You can always bring it over and do what you need to do. Usually what I do is go smaller. It'll lock into the corner for you. You see that kind of little lock, and then you can drag it until it locks once again into the corner so you know you have the right size. As long as you set your right aspect ratio of 1920 by 1080 in GIMP and then save the file as that size, it'll load in just fine. Anything black basically that we see is nothing. It's just blank space. This is what OBS denotes as nothing. So the next thing we're going to add is the webcam. I have my webcam plugged into my computer. You go down here in sources plus video capture device, and normally you would create a new one. I already have it loaded into OBS for all the other stuff we've done, and OBS won't let me add the source twice. So if I want to see my face, I got to choose the existing one, but name it whatever you want. Mine is just called the default video capture device, and we'll load it in, and there we are. So now you guys can see my face, and first we need to make it the right size, obviously, and I do have a green screen behind me. We're not going to be getting into green screen details. We're just going to be getting into how to use the webcam for the layout that we're working with right here. So as you can see, I've loaded in the webcam, but it's one on top of the overlay and it's way too big. So first step, we're gonna just drag this underneath. So now we have the green or the brown box around my face, but it still is too big. So we're gonna go here, video capture device, transform, edit transform, and this ratio for my webcam is 1920 by 1080. Yours is probably gonna be 1920 by 1080 as well. We could have created this box to be a little wider to make it work, but I don't need all this extra space. I'd rather maximize the gameplay that's going to be right here. So you use these crop tools. Unfortunately, this is kind of it's not exactly the most robust way to do it, but basically I want to take off the same side on the left and the right, and you can either hold up like I am right here, or you can just type in a value. I'm just guessing with 120 on the left and 120 on the right. And how well did I do? So we still got to take a little bit more off. We'll go back, edit transform. Let's do 160. These are pixels, I believe, on each side. And that is pretty darn close. I'm just looking here to see a little bit on the side here. So we're going to do 180 and 180. That might have been a little too much. Nope. See, like it always wants to lock. Whatever source you have always wants to lock to the top, to the sides. So we kind of bring it here where we want, lock it over, close it, make sure you click out here to make sure it doesn't show. Sometimes the border edge, when it highlights it in this like green and red, it can look like it's fine and then you get rid of it and there's a little bit showing off to the side. But we are good now for the webcam, and there we are. Next, we are going to add the Elgato. Go once again over to the plus button under Sources, Video Capture Device. If you need help with setting up your Elgato in OBS, there's plenty of tutorials on the internet. Once again, this is a layout tutorial, not a get everything working in every single way. We're going to go down to here. I already have this created. OBS doesn't like you to create multiple sources with the same input, so you're going to go to create new. I'm going to Elgato switch because I've already set that up. Hitting OK. It should take a minute. Pop in. If it doesn't pop in right away, and I also forgot to mention this for the video capture device, if you're in properties, which it's going to load up properties, you can choose your video source right here. I've got two webcams plugged in. That's why there's two of them. This is the Elgato, and this is the old Elgato that I don't use anymore or rarely use. So we're back here. We have chosen, essentially, we've gone here and chosen Game Capture HD60 Pro. That is my Elgato. Clicked OK, and we still have the same issue that it's in the front. Let's drag it to the back behind everything. There we go. Now we see the gameplay. That's pretty much it. The Elgato's done. If you are having trouble with audio, OBS for me loaded up audio just fine. It had no problems. You can see my mic here of what's being fed in. You might have multiple sources based on your multiple sources here. I've turned them all off. If you see nothing here or nothing's working, if there's no bar going across and you know your mic's on, you can go here to settings. Once it loads, settings takes a really long time to load in OBS. I'm not really sure why. And go to audio, and you should see all these different devices. You can have the desktop audio 1, 2, and then 4 different mic or auxiliary options. Right now, this is my main mic. If you have a Yeti mic, let's say, plugged into USB, it's going to say Yeti. Whatever your mic is, this is actually my mixer that feeds in all the audio. That's why I have everything disabled. But for you, you're probably going to have multiple sources. Find which one you want. Here's the Elgato. Here's the different webcams. If you have like voice banana meter, whatever it's called, it'll be loaded in here. You choose your audio source and it should pop up. So if we were to go to there and go to apply, once again, OBS takes a long time to apply settings. It will then pop up here as mic aux 2. You can rename this within here, within properties, etc., etc. There's tons of tutorials on audio stuff. Audio in OBS is actually pretty robust for being a computer capture software. It does a pretty good job. But for the sake of this tutorial, we do not need this one. We're just going to mute it in case any extra sound comes in that I don't want. The text over there, we need our recent subscriber text. So I'm using a program called Streamlabs, which has something called Stream Labels. Links for how to do that will be down in the description below. But once you download Stream Labels on your computer, it should have a window that pops wherever it saves. I saved it to users, IndigoCharge, Twitch, stream labels. You have all of these files. What you're going to want to do is find, for us, we're going to go to most, is it recent? Yeah, most recent. Most recent subscriber. There's our most recent subscriber. This will auto update on your computer using the Stream Labels program. So we're not going to use this entirely. I just wanted to see where it was. Once again, go on to add, go down to text, and we're going to call this most, we'll keep with the spaces, recent subscriber. Once you're here, hit OK. And read from file. This is the important part. It's going to live update based on what file you have loaded in. Browse for your text file. We knew it was IndigoCharge, Twitch, Stream Labels. I'm going to search in here again for most recent subscriber. And there we go. And it should load in just fine. You can change the font to whatever you want. These are your system fonts. So if you have a custom font loaded in, it will load in right there. It's not like an OBS specific font. So let's go with the rounded. I like the rounded. Where'd it go? There it is. Perfect. You can set your size. Often I go with 72 and then I make it bigger or smaller from there. You can flip it upside down if you'd like by just holding and dragging up instead of dragging down. But we are going to make it around this size. That is too big. We're just going to fit it in this box. Let's do something like that. That seems like a good size. You probably got some users, subscribers, followers, etc. with really long names. So in order to allow them to appear here but not go past this edge we have to do a little modification to this box in itself. So go down here to your most recent subscriber and go to transform, edit transform once again, just like we did for the webcam. And you're going to go here and change the bounding box type to maximum size only. What this is going to do is to create a maximum size box that this can be. And if the name is too long, it will shrink the name to fit in that box, or you can set it to just cut off the name if you'd prefer. So typically what I do is change it to maximum size only. For this one, because we have like a colon, we're going to go to center left, so it's positioned over on the left. Redrag our box to kind of fit where we want it to. You can also use the arrow keys once you're highlighted on a source to have a little more precise movement. And yeah, that looks pretty good right there. And then we're going to change the bounding box size. So this is your X, your horizontal. This is your Y, your vertical. We don't really care about the vertical because we put it in the bottom left. So the font size is going to limit it to that size, but we do care about the horizontal. We want to drag this all the way out here, right to that little corner point. And we're going to guess with, let's go with 500, a little bit more, 70 maybe. Yeah, 570 looks good. So now if we have a name that's really, really long, it will get cut off right here, or like I said, it'll shrink it down. See how it made it really, really small to fit the name? Typically, what I try to do is make a bounding box size that is, I do let the names get smaller, but I make it large enough that 95, 96, 97% of the names are going to fit with no problem. So it's not going to shrink it down to this small. If you don't like it centering to the bottom, you can change this to transform, edit, transform, change it to the center left so it'll stay in the center of the box. And that way, if you put it, let's say here, it'll all be in the center. And now we're back to where we were because I centered it. It's not quite there. You have a lot of freedom with this. You can really do whatever you want. One thing that I'll do often, I'll show you guys on the other one, is add a shadow here. But it's a little bit trickier than in GIMP. You can't just hit the shadow button. But we'll go over that in the next layout. If you want to add, let's say, alerts and stuff, that also goes through, for me at least, the program called Streamlabs. And so you're just going to go down here, hit plus, go to browser source, and within the Streamlabs program, you should get a link. You should get a web page. All you got to do is basically find that web page. So I'm going to load in the one I already have. Let's drag it. I like it. Now let's put it down in the corner. This is the entire size of it. So this is our alert. This is that web page that Streamlabs gave me. Once you load that in, You then can test it by going to the Streamlabs site. This is what would come up if somebody followed. This is what I have for my GIF and my text to show up. If I wanted a different size, there's two things you can do. You can drag it to be a different size and retest it and be like, okay, that's a little bit bigger, but what if you want the text bigger in proportion to the GIF? You don't change that within Streamlabs. You can kind of change it, but the way that I do it is go here, once again, go to properties and change this width and height. So if I change this, let's say to 1200 by 800, it's then going to be much bigger. We can change, this is basically like a proportion thing. Drag it to about the same size, and when we test it, it's going to look a heck of a lot different. As you make it bigger and smaller, the ratio-wise, it's going to change the text. The GIF image will also change as you change it high and low, and it'll fit within whatever bounding size you put here. So play around with that if you're having trouble and you're like, why is my text so small? Or why is my image so stinking huge? I want the text bigger and the image tinier. For me, I use the 800 by 600 ratio. It's what works for me, and then I drag it to a bigger size. And once again, just so you can see that, there's the test, follow it with the sound. Hey! So there we go. That's it for our 1920 by 1080p layout. It's pretty simple. We're going to do the same thing now with the Game Boy layout and just add a few more features, but that's pretty much it. So before we begin, I forgot to do something in the first tutorial for the Game Boy layout specifically. We have to cut out the green of this space right here, because otherwise we're either going to have the webcam on top of this, what's supposed to be framing it, the brown, or it's going to be behind the green and we're not going to be able to see it. So go to your layer that is the brown one, go to your magic select tool, make the threshold really, really high, and just highlight somewhere in the middle. It'll highlight this space, and you can then go to your green layer and delete. Now we have a space there that we can actually use. Go up to File, Save Your Project, File, Export As. We'll save it as the same thing. There we go. And now we are ready to go to actually use the Game Boy layout. Sorry about that if you watched the first tutorial and you were pretty confused. So once you have your Game Boy layout in a viable format, go over here, go to New Scene with the plus button, title it Game Boy Overlay or whatever makes sense to you. Perfect, perfect, and we're left with a new black screen. Once again, plus image under the Sources tab. We are definitely going to add a new one, title it Game Boy Space Overlay because we can't keep those names the same. Perfect, browse to find it, grab your Game Boy layout, and put it in like so. Just like before, we're going to go over this a little bit quicker because we just did it. Make it a little bit smaller, lock it into the top corner, drag it into the bottom corner, and then go on to your webcam. Video capture device, you've already loaded it in, so you can click Add Existing on this one just like I did. Mine's called Video Capture Device. Whatever you named it is what it's going to be named. And there's our face. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We are going to now drag it down to the right size. We will line up the height just as before. And then we will trim actually this one we don't even need to trim. We just put it behind the Game Boy overlay and it covers anything that we could have. And so you can just leave that, save a little bit of steps. I want it to be just a hair bigger to make sure it's big enough. And there we go. There's your webcam in the box. Looks all hunky-dory. Next, let's go ahead and add the game itself. So this is going to be a little bit different than last time. We're not going to add a video capture device because we are going to be recording this off of our computer directly. I'm running an emulator and I'm running the game off of the computer. So I'm going to go instead to window capture. Once I go to window capture, we're going to title this Game Boy and create a new source. Find the program that is running. These are all the different programs that are running on my PC. Find the one that is running the game and click OK. And if we did our jobs right with the ratios, we just should be able to drag, lock it into the bottom, check, and we are good to go. The game fits perfectly within that window. And everything looks great. So now we get to move on to the recent subscriber, recent follower, and top donation. We do it in the same way we did the last time, so I'm not going to go everything in too much detail, but for instance, we did change one thing. If we go to recent subscriber, I already have it plugged in here to save a little bit of time. Instead of within the transformation, if we edit our transform, instead of clicking center left, so something like that, where it's centered over to the left, I clicked center. So I made sure that I have the bounding box type to maximum size only, centered, made it about 600 because that seemed like a good distance for me, what made sense, and it will always keep those words in the center of wherever the box is. OBS doesn't have any sort of centering tools other than this. Like I can't say, hey, line up this entire source with, let's say, the webcam to make it all look good. No, that'd be too simple. OBS doesn't have that. It doesn't have an undo button. There are some things that I wish they would add. But once you're done there, in the same method, we're going to recreate the next text just like we did before. And we've got most recent sub shadow, moved it down to the right, copy the transform, all that good stuff, and do the same for the other sources. So for these sources, what I would do is load in the text file, reading from a file just like before, change the font, change the color as it should be, and then go ahead and copy this particular transform. So it would end up looking like this, and then I just use the arrow tools to move it down and keep it lined up straight, because once again, there's no centering tools in OBS, which is really a bummer. But once you're done there, go ahead and add your top donation or whatever you set it to as well, all using those Streamlabs text files that are auto-generated, and we're pretty much done. Last thing we need to do is add a browser source. So there we go. We're going to go to the one we already created, which is All Host Redemption. That's what I've called it. Let's go ahead and put it right here. We'll run a test to make sure that's working, which it is working great. I like the sizing. I like the proportions, all that. And then you can just go ahead and hit start record, start streaming, whatever works for you, and go ahead and play your game. It's pretty darn straightforward. Since this is an emulator, I'm just going to use the keyboard tools. So I have to press start. Yeah, it's start. There we go. Just to show you that the game is actually working. Create a new game, etc., etc. I hit B instead of A accidentally, but that's all there is to it there. If you're curious on how to record, recording is literally as simple as recording. You can change the default save location to whatever you want. In order to stream, it takes a little bit more steps. You can go down here to settings. Once settings loads, and go to stream. I have my Twitch account connected, so it will just know automatically where to go. But if I were to hit disconnect account, there'd be a nice little box here that says stream key. Search stream key if you're having troubles, if you don't have your Twitch and your OBS synced up. Otherwise, it works really well. You can load in stuff here like your if I can get to lock, there we go. Your stream information, you can load stuff on the other side like your chat. These are all dockable windows, which is great. It really, really does streamline the process. And that wraps up this two-part tutorial. If you have any questions, like how to take what we did here today and scale it up to something like, let's say this, ask away in the comments below. If you learned something or just enjoyed the video, do all those wonderful things such as like, subscribe, etc., etc. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a wonder-filled day. And as always, stay charged.